everybody, I'm Robert.
Hey guys, I'm Chris.
And we're the Film Flamers.
Today we're bringing you our hot take on The Wretched.
That's right. If you recall from Shooting the Flames last week, I talked about watching The Wretched because it had sort of made some headlines about being the #1 movie at the box office. And at this point, by the time of this recording, 4 weeks in a row, I needed to check it out because I wanted to see what kind of movie was #1 during the pandemic.
And there's a little story behind that, right? Because it was only at like a couple of drive-ins or something, where people could be socially distant, and that's why this movie, like, it never would have had a chance before, and we probably wouldn't even still known about it at this point. But it was basically top of the box office because it's a good horror movie that was on these drive-ins.
That's right. And so I sort of found out about the movie by reading an article on Bloody Disgusting about it being #1, but now even Forbes has written an article about this movie.
Yeah, I've seen it in the news since then, yeah.
And so, it made me super excited and super happy that a small independent horror movie could reach the level and be able to say they were a #1 movie at the box office, and I wanted to check it out. And also, I wanted my good friend and co-host Chris to watch it as well, to see what he thought.
Yeah, and I did.
And so now it's time for us to give our hot take on this little movie that everyone is talking about.
So this movie actually premiered back in July, I think, and then it didn't get a wider, in quotes, wider release until now. But it's about a young boy who discovers an evil witch in the nearby woods and must stop it from harming his neighbors. Mm-hmm. And it is described as it is because it is a nature-based or tree witch creature thing, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Right. So the movie focuses around this young boy, a teenage boy, who has come to live with his father because his parents are going through some sort of separation or imminent divorce. Mm-hmm. And he is sort of thrown into a life that he's not accustomed to, making friends and working. And he notices some strange things going on at his father's neighbor's house. And so the movie itself sort of takes a Rear Window / Evil Dead / witch / every horror trope imaginable thrown into one movie kind of turn, and even some Shyamalan-esque twists. So I think there's a lot to enjoy and talk about for this movie.
So I actually really enjoyed this movie a lot. I thought it was really solid. Especially for such a low budget. We don't really know the budget. All I know is that it was shot for theoretically just the lowest of budgets imaginable, but it looks and sounds really, really good. And so far at the box office, it's made $650,000. So I guess that might be breaking even. I don't know. Low budget nowadays is $1 million or less, right?
I really love the fact that, for a #1 movie at the box office, you would expect to have millions and millions of dollars, right? And obviously during the times that we live in, that's not going to happen. And so for a #1 movie to make $600,000, I think is just amazing.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people are hearing that news and then watching it on video, because even though it's still in those drive-in theaters, it is on video on demand. So I believe we both rented it on Amazon.
Yep. So yeah, I rented it on Amazon. Chris and I watched it together during our brief stint, reunited. And then I actually watched it again yesterday at the time of this recording. So I've seen this movie 3 times now. So, and I don't know why I felt the need to watch it that third time. I guess I just sort of wanted to, right? Both because I enjoyed the movie and I sort of wanted to piece things together a little bit. I think the more you watch something, you can sort of see why they made the writing and directing choices that they did.
Okay, good. Maybe you can answer some questions for me.
I don't know. I don't think a whole lot got answered for me either. I just really enjoyed it on that third watch again. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the lead actor in this movie. His name is John Paul Howard. And he's a good little horror actor, right? He carried this movie well, and it really was just a good center for this movie. And to me, and I could be wrong about this, right? But it's been a while since I've seen a teen-driven horror movie that was sort of centered around a guy. I think oftentimes we get a final girl, and I know it was sort of refreshing for me, right?
Yeah, it almost feels like a final family in this because it is kind of neighborhood based.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, and I didn't even think about that. So that's perfect. So, I mean, so this kid like really starts to piece together the things that are going wrong in his little neighborhood. And
there's a little like Rear Window-esque kind of situation. He's got a broken arm, but he's like spying on the neighbors and watching weird things happen. And he starts to investigate when things just get weirder and weirder.
And I think that's partly the reason why I like this movie so much. I mean, oftentimes on the Film Flamers, we talk about homage and how much we appreciate callbacks to other horror movies. And this movie is rife with it for sure. I mean, we got some Hitchcock going on in there and other like supernatural elements and even maybe some like Jaws moments, right? Because it all takes place on like a body of water. There's no shark, but I mean, I don't know, boats.
Yeah, I'm not sure any horror moments happen on the boats until the very, very, very end of the movie, but we don't want to give too much away. So the Wretched tries to invoke some kind of folklore, I think, with this tree witch creature thing and some of the abilities and rituals that surround that character, like possessing or replacing people, which is another kind of homage to some other things, consuming children, living in the forest, etc., etc. But it's a little muddled and messy if you think about it too much. Like there's some different things going on. Like there's this movie has kind of like a zombie-like intro that doesn't really connect with the rest of the movie, but it just kind of calls, it's like, why was it 30 years ago? Where are those characters now? What happened with it? Like the cult-like symbol that you see on the poster for this film is seen on the doors or the houses of the victims, as well as the tree or lair of the witch itself. And it's like, you wonder if there's like a cult thing, because it's also having like setting up like an altar. Like, what is its god? Is it the patron demon of truckers, the Wendigo?
It certainly looks like it,
because it has antlers and everything else. Like it's leaving a bundle of sticks in the place of a baby, even though it doesn't do that for anything else. Like the laws and rules about the creature are really murky. It just seems like it takes a lot of different things from folklore and kind of sticks it together, much like that bundle of sticks. So when it does return to its lair, and when does it return to its lair and start again? Like it obviously is like sated at some point, because it's going in and possessing and replacing these people and then consuming the children, but it's also consuming the people it replaces. So it's like at some point it does return to its lair, and I don't know, maybe sleeps for a while. I was thinking maybe that was some sort of Jeepers Creepers moment, but it doesn't really explain any of that. And I guess it eventually goes back to its tree and starts, making cookies with the rest of the Keeblers. But and I'm happy that nothing is really explained. I think horror is generally better, and creepier when it isn't fully explained. But I just felt like I needed some kind of tidbit to tie all of it together, to ground it a little bit. I mean, what's with all this senseless killing? Let's have a murder that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, I agree that there were some unanswered questions about the actual villain in the movie and the way that it operates and why, and if they're going to make callbacks to things like Jeepers Creepers, or I think more importantly, it in this movie. I mean, obviously it comes and goes from its place in nature to devour children. And I was like, well, it's very similar to it, but it did a good job at explaining a timeline and why.
Kind of like Jeepers Creepers could have been based on it too. Yeah.
Right. And so, I feel that unanswered questions are okay in this movie. Like, it doesn't bother me so much that I don't know the where and why that the witch is operating, but
what it's worshiping, why it's setting up altars to either itself or something else, why it's what the cult like symbol is, and why it's putting it like it's self-branding. Well, there's a lot of weird details that are really interesting that I wish was kind of explained more.
Self-branding. I really like that. Witchcraft itself is a religion, right? And so witches obviously worship nature, or, I'm not a Wiccan, so I'm not going to speak to any of that, but I would assume that this witch also worships something, and that's why she's setting up that altar. She needs that altar to operate, right?
Maybe she just likes real estate, because she doesn't say, I want to eat you, I want to break your, I want to kill all your family, I want to consume everything, I'm going to possess you and erase everyone's memories, because that's another thing she does, is erase people's memories of their loved ones so she can replace and eat them.
Right.
Can kind of consume one household at a time. She says, I'm going to break your arm. That's the only threat. The thing that she says she wants is the house. She's like, I really like this house.
Right. I know. When you just said maybe she just likes real estate, estate. I'm like, obviously she does, because she's like, I really like this house. I'm like, oh, she's finally found it. That's all that this witch is after, is like the perfect forever home. And she's like, this is the one.
Well, you go back to that tree and it's just a wreck.
Yeah. It's a wretched wreck. All gnarly and shit. I mean,
yeah, I really like the creature's presentation at the beginning of the film, because it does the kind of that subtle creepy horror that I love so much. Like, you see her on a baby monitor, it's just the eyes, and you're not sure of like the size and like kind of shape of this creature until later. But it's really kind of the sense is that it's very animal like until you see that it's really just this old wretched woman and tree makeup.
I really enjoyed the moments when it came out of the deer to sort of like put itself in the story that we are focused on, right? So we're given a sort of flashback at the beginning, and then eventually like this creature comes out of a deer, and that's the whole start of its like possession and work in the area.
And it tried to hitch a ride because it can't possess someone unless it can kind of get someone down into its lair to do that, to like eat it out of its skin and to put the skin on, right? It's a skinwalker or something. Mm-hmm. And so apparently it got into this fucking deer and put the deer in front of this family's car, and they hit it, and then they load it up to try and like, I guess, eat it. But it's all putrid and nasty. So they're like, oh, we're going to not eat this. And then later that night, it kind of comes out of the deer's stomach and goes and leaves a bundle of sticks for in place of their baby.
Yeah.
Well, we have to tell that story because we're both gay, and it's slightly, ever so slightly more okay for us to say the word, if it's okay at all ever. But I just remember like watching that movie for the first time, and you were sitting right next to me, and she lifts the little baby blanket, and it's just like this bundle of sticks. And I'm like, oh my God, my baby's a faggot. And you died.
I mean, it's moments like that make movies like fun to watch with friends, right? So, I mean, like, no offense to anybody, but it was a funny moment. So, I mean, it's just a literal use of a definition of a word. So, but I really enjoyed the moment that being came out of that deer, because we get this moment where the hero of the movie is investigating a strange noise. So he goes outside and ultimately gets to the neighbor's porch, and it's there, like on the porch, like watching him. And we have no idea how big or small or what it is, right? And it's that kind of like unknowing about what this villain actually is that makes the movie exciting and fun for me.
That's why I really appreciate the first half of this movie more than the second half.
Agreed.
Because there's also kind of a twist at the end. It's not like a game-changing twist, M. Night Shyamalan style, but it's more like a needless twist, and that it didn't really have to happen. And it kind of begs some questions in retrospect.
Well, and that's why I went back to watch the movie, because I wanted to sort of piece together this twist. And I was just like, obviously they have some moments where they're like showing you the twist you're supposed to know. And I'm like, okay, let me just see if I would have picked up on it, or should I have picked up on it in these moments, right? And no, I don't. I've watched it 3 times now, and I'm like...
They make it way too ambiguous.
Right.
Like the weird woman saying, like, that's a nice drawing on your cast, and it's like this doodle. And it's like, that kid could have done that, not, Anyway, we're getting too into it. I don't want to reveal the twist.
Yeah, I don't want to.
There's also like a thing where there's like a Connect 4 game or whatever, and I'm like, that's age appropriate. Like, I didn't think anything of it, Well, I mean, I just thought he was playing a game with his dad, and I mean, and there's another scene with the witch sort of at a doorway. So I mean, like, listeners, when you watch The Wretched, and I suggest that all of you go do it, because I would like to continue supporting this movie. I think that we need to like lift this movie up, because in the time that we're living in this pandemic and not being able to go to theaters, I think that this is a wonderful story for all of us to like get a little gleam of hope of, right? And also, I think that it's good for horror fans, right? Because, I mean, if look at the time that we're living in, right? And there are other movies showing in that drive-in, things that are not horror related, but what are people flocking to see in a time like this? They're going to see this little horror movie about a witch. And I think that this shows you why this genre is so important to people who love it, and even people who don't, like, we're living in a very scary time. Let's go watch something controlled and scary and just like sort of let our emotions out a little bit. And I think this is a perfect, fun movie to do that. But it also makes me kind of wish that we had more drive-in theaters, right? Because that's like perfect, go in with like a significant other or some friends, and go and just sit in your enclosed space, because, pandemic and watch a horror movie and at night, you know.
That's right.
It just seems like it's just perfect. Drive-ins are perfect for horror movies, and I wish we had more of that.
And I hope that we see some sort of renaissance in this too. I mean, like, I know that you have to like buy their food and candy, but let's face it, in your own car, you can bring in whatever you want. And I'll have a whole like ice chest full of beer and can relax in my own fucking vehicle with my husband if I can drag him to a movie like this and like watch it, you know? So bring on the drive-ins. I think it's a good thing to do. And this is a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Open bottles of alcohol in vehicles. It's a fun time.
Well, I'm not driving.
Overall, I feel like this movie looks and sounds great. It has great creature design, makeup, and effects, and has a good mix, like a really good mix of both subtle and bombastic horror. And it's a lot of fun, as long as you don't think about it too much. And I would watch this again. And I think I rated it 3.5 stars, almost rated it 4.
Yeah. And I whenever we watched it together, I told you I had rated it 3.5, and I was like teetering on 4, and I still am. Like, this is totally a movie that I would watch again. This is totally a movie that I would recommend to people to go and watch. This is a movie that I would watch for like the 6th time just to show it to someone who hadn't seen it before. And I think that speaks very highly of a movie. So, I mean, I might even like bump it up to 4 stars, you know?
If they removed that twist or just made it a little bit tighter, and this is not an overlong movie at all. It's a good length. Yeah, and if they removed that twist, it would literally just be like 2 minutes shorter, you know, but...
And, I mean, like, the cast is good. I liked his friend, right? Or love interest, right? Yeah. Mallory was her character name. I think the actress' name is Piper Curda or something, and she was delightful.
She was great.
I mean... Yeah, it's just a fun movie. And
I love the end of the film too.
Yeah, it has a nice uplifting ending. So, I mean, happy. And it's what we need. It's what we need right now. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say that Chris and I wholeheartedly recommend The Wretched. After having, I mean, some hot takes we've had this year have been just abysmal, right? And it's good to watch a movie that we liked.
Yeah.
So... Well, I think that just about wraps up our conversation on The Wretched. We would obviously love to know what y'all thought about the movie, so reach out to us on social media at The Film Flamers on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
Or email us at tiredqueens@filmflamers.com, or better yet, call our hotline at 972-666-7733. Let us know exactly what you thought of The Wretched, or anything else really, and we'll put it on the air in the next Shooting the Flames and respond to it.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast where you listen, and head over to patreon.com/thefilmflamers, where we have tons and tons of bonus content, including stuff coming out this month. We can get as little as $2.
Yep. Last month we did a flashback on Doctor Strange, and this month we are doing a flashback on Suddenly Last Summer.
And Chris and I watched about, 1,700 movies during our brief stint together, so we might even have some other hot takes hitting Patreon as well. So
yeah, we've definitely got the backlog that we could talk about.
Yeah, stay tuned, everybody. And we have more stuff coming out for you in June. We'll be covering Psycho Beach Party and doing a top 10 on vacation horror. We haven't done a top 10 in quite some time.
Yeah.
So, well... Guys, we appreciate all the listens and support, and we're going to go off into our sleepy woods and try to find a tree witch, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sweet dreams.